with the war, so we are remembering them. But I thought, what is memory? What is memory? When we say about memory, that's why I just put it. Memory, keeping it alive, and also the art of memory. So here again, we are not dealing with an English word at all. It sounds English, but it is Latin. We have borrowed it from the Romans. That's what we want to believe. But actually, Latin was spoken in the northern part of Africa before it was spoken in Rome. So it's an African language that has come via Rome to us. It simply means to be mindful and to remember it, re-owning it. That's all it means. Big word, but with a big meaning too. To be mindful. And this is a word that often people nowadays speak about, particularly psychologists, when they emphasize how do you take care of your body, be mindful. How do you take care of your health, be mindful. How do you sleep, be mindful. And what kind of food do you eat before you go to sleep, be mindful. So in eating habits, that particular, and meditative practices, that particular concept has made its home. But how has it made our home in our midst? That is what we need to go about. We have in our contemporary situation several ways of remembering people and things. We remember what we want to remember, isn't it? There are a lot of things we forget because we choose to forget them. So here again, memory has to do with the discipline. I want to remember, I take time to remember. So when we come towards the end, the art of memory, I will be sharing a few things with you. Storing and retrieving information. So it's not only with the computers. Anyway, the computers are based on our brains, not vice versa. Even though many people think that is a super machine, God has endowed us with a much greater machine, our brain. That's what we store our things. And we recollect them, remind them, we commemorate them, we honor them, and also it has to do with the time that we take, the endurance. See, when we saw the slide, we noticed some people passed away 10 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago. We remember them. As long as we choose to remember, the people are not dead. They become alive. Lot of things has to do with, depends with our choice. And again, academic scholars have come up with various varieties. See, you can see short-term memory, long-term memory, choosy memory, and explicit memory, implicit memory, declarative memory, this and that. There's no end to it. The list goes on and on. It is also one of the academic habits. If you want to draw your attention, you have to come up with something new. It's the old same thing, but you say it differently. And then some people will say you are a great scholar. Anyway, we all know the meaning of the word scholar, don't we? A scholar is a schoolboy. So a great scholar means a great learner. He's not necessarily an expert. So, this is one scholarly view. So, we have been thinking about today World War I and what it has done. In our university, we had a memorial conference in 2014, 100 years start of the Great War. And today, this time also, we are having conferences, meetings that consider the outcome of the war, what came out of it, and what happened to it. Well, Britain got involved when it went to help Belgium, a neutral country at that time. And what followed, whether it is with the enemy countries, with the soldiers, many things changed. At that time, Britain was an empire. They had colonies in Asia, Africa, and in many other places. That's why I was so happy to see a wonderful song that you sang today. What happened in Africa and Amazon forests and in Asia is all part of our life here today. In a way, we represent world Christianity. It's not a small group here in Enfield, in Temple of Praise. We are the representative of God's people all over the world. It's a great joy. So British Empire was mighty. People from Britain and all other parts of the world participated in it, Indians included, because India was at that time the crown of the jewel. Many Indians fought and died for Britain. So did Africans and many other countries. We remember them. How do normally we choose to remember the war dead? Well, we wear poppies, we illuminate war memorials, go to museums, display photos. I have seen in some churches flags and photos being displayed with many sayings about the past memories, particularly from families who have lost. And we hear testimonies of people who are alive still, thank God, some of them who experienced the World War I. Today you may have also heard it, perhaps in the BBC. And going in procession and many things we do. And it's rightly so, we shouldn't forget. Having an enemy is always costly and time-consuming, whether it is individually or in a society or in a nation. It's costly. Sometimes the enemies may be real. Sometimes the enemies may be imaginative. They may not be there. We create our own enemies and fight against them in vain. And these all consume our energy, money, time, and creativity. So war is never a good thing. Never a good thing. And fighting for peace with guns is not going to bring enduring peace. I was greatly struck in Calcutta, in India, when there were two cannons were displayed. In the middle, they wrote the word peace. It's a contradictory thing. But friends, wars thrive in the world, where people want to make enemies. And that is the situation where we think, as much possible, we need to make. I just put what I read in today's BBC, what the World War I did in a scientific way. See, it created air traffic control, otherwise we might not be able to travel with the airlines. Hydrophones for sea travel, particularly to identify big icebergs and enemy ships. And pilotless planes, what we call nowadays drones, were invented at that time, and sanitary towels for our women. These are all some of the good things that came out of it. Do you remember, even out of chaos and catastrophe, something can come out? And these are some of the examples. So in the midst of trouble, we may take a little bit of time to contemplate what good can it come. The Old Testament stories and the New Testament stories and history of Christianity are filled with the stories of failures. Not only victories, but the failure and defeat did not stay there. God, in God's grace, has turned them into something good. That's why out of the cracks of people's lives, a new plant of hope comes out and delights us. And that is the story to which I would like to turn our attention to, Psalm 46. Christians, or for that matter, any faith community, is the longest memory-holding community. It's the people of the religion are the ones who hold memories the longest. All other super brainy fellows, they lose. We do not speak about the great scientists, or great scholars, or great statesmen, perhaps after their lifetime. We forget many of them. But look at the stories of religion. Look at the stories of the Bible. We talk about them. So we live by memories. We live by interpreting the memories that God has given us. We say, God of Abraham. We never saw Abraham in our life. God of Jacob. God of Isaac. They are our ancestors. That's what we claim. Dim, distant past. But yet they are so much alive in our mind.
That's right.
In our hearts.
Right.
In our families. In our churches.
Amen.
Friends, it's a miracle. How can we own a person of a different race, different time, different place as our ancestor? And it is possible through faith in Christ. That's what we mean.
Right.
Secondly, we claim God's covenant made with Moses. None of us saw Moses. But it is the Ten Commandments. God's covenant with us. The stories of the Old and New Testaments are filled with stories that we claim it is our story, and rightly so. And Jesus died and rose again for me and you nearly 2,000 years ago. That's why we are here. We commemorate memories. We live by them, we hold them. To relive, to renew our memories. Before we go, let us see the context. Every part, every poem, every passage in the Bible has its own context. So this is a choir song written for a choir master. Very appropriate for Temple of Praise. I saw how our pastor ran to play the piano. Fantastic, I thought. So many gifts is in our church. Just use it for God's glory. It's written for the choir master. Also, it's a specialist song. Not to be taken lightly. And when we say it's a choir song, it needs cooperation. It is not a single person show. Look how good I am, no. It is the collective effort. And perhaps you would have seen when we were reading the psalm, there was often places, Selah, Selah.
Yeah.
It means pause, think, don't rush through. If you rush through, you may not really get the meaning, the deep meaning that is given there. And then also it tells, give attention to your emotions. Are you tired, sleepy, fresh, alive, awakened, joyful, strengthened? These are emotions. So the psalm builds it into it. So you may have seen when you clap hands, when you move around, when you wave your hands, when you tilt your head, well, you express your emotions. So the psalm caters to that need. But we have to be, what is the meaning of the word memory? Mindfulness. We need to be mindful of it. If we choose not to, we won't. That's why it has been mindful. So it's a choir song. And you notice that second point that I put, God resides in Zion. That is the center of the world for the psalmist at that time. Where is your center of the world? For the Chinese, China is the center of the world. For Indians, India is the center of the world. In other words, where your legs stand, that is your center of the world. Otherwise, your center of the world will be only imaginary, you won't be there. In other words, the psalm tells, be real. Take your context seriously, look around. What is the situation in which we are living? What is the situation in which we are singing this song or hearing it? When we say, everything will be well with you, well, it will be well when you are paying attention to your context too. God wants us. So that is important. God resides in Zion. And Zion remains steady. because God is there. Friends, we cannot touch God immediately, but we can touch God's people. We cannot go and embrace God, but perhaps we can enter into God's dwelling place, the church, or the temple of praise. These are the contexts in which we really come face to face with God. Not in an imaginary, longing way, oh, how I wished things were like that. Well, things would not be like that. We have to face the reality. Our reality is where we are. Particularly for your and my reality, I should not be longing about what I cannot do now, something else. We all tend to do that. We long for something we want to have. It's good to have aspirations. That's what the song was telling. Good aspirations, good hope. That we need to have. But unrealistic things, it is very tough. Then it goes, claim a calm river feeds the city. It's verse 4. We will come to it. In the midst of trouble, God tells there is peace somewhere. There is a quiet place somewhere. Find it out. And God ends the warfare and claim God's victorious presence and peace. This is the context in which the psalm operates. Now let's see the first one reads, God is our refuge, our strength, a very present help in trouble. Friends, the three words, refuge, strength, and help. These are amazing words. See, fortunately the Bible, we have it in English and we think it was written in English. That is what we assume. Because we read so many English things here all the time. But it was not written in English. It is Hebrew text. So whenever you read the word God, well, the English word is sometimes tasteless, as I say, the word God. Because you can put anything and everything into it and say God. Oh gosh, we say that, isn't it? Oh my God. So many times that is the most abused word in English, it seems to me. But in the original texts, where the Bible was written and is still alive, these words have meanings. Meanings that are deeper than we can possibly imagine in English language. See, that's why I put that it is Elohim. It's not merely God. It is the God who creates out of nothing. That is the word that is in Genesis chapter 1. When God created the world or made the chaotic things in order, that is the word that is used, God. In English, we do not readily understand that. But Elohim, so remember, whenever you hear the word Elohim, claim it. Lord, you can make something out of chaotic situations. Whether personally or in whatever circumstance it may be, we can claim it. I need the Elohim God. Elohim. We will be studying one more word, a powerful word named for God. We will come to it very soon. But Elohim, God can make something useful where human minds think they cannot do it. Humanly impossible perhaps, but not with God. Amen. And not with God's people as well. Amen. That's what we need to hold. So Elohim is our refuge. Hallelujah. I put that word refuge over there and put some other things, shelter. That's what it really is. It is a roof above head. It's a wall around us. It's the loving hands that embrace us. That's all it means. Amen. Refuge. Amen. It's a great story. Great story. And friend, you may wonder the word, you all know the Hebrew word, perhaps I assume, strength. Do you know what it is? How many of us have seen The Wizard of Oz? Yeah, nearly everybody, I hope so. It is the word Oz. That is in Hebrew for strength. Why should that film be called Oz? Strength? Because in seemingly weak situations, where the girl or the people around her in that film could do nothing big, ultimately they did something great. Again, where we think humanly is weakness in human beings, that is the source for strength. You know, the greatest strength in the world is the cross of Christ. Where you break down, say, Lord, I am nothing. Then you get up, you are everything in God's presence. May not be immediately in your own eyes, and your bodies may not immediately feel it. You are still the same person. But the resolve that happens in mind, the determination that arises in your heart, will propel you to do something that you thought and I thought impossible. Friends, without that drive, we may not be able to achieve anything. So whenever we kneel down at the foot of the cross, that is the source of strength. So cross seemed as a symbol of defeat of a criminal, but it became the symbol of the Savior, the greatest victor. The world is yet to discover the beauty of that victor. We have today very mindfully thought about the persecuted Christians. 20th century, in the midst of all its greatness, was the worst century for Christian persecution. More people, Christians were persecuted in 20th century than any century put together, all previous centuries. More people suffered for Christ. And in the midst of that suffering, the number of Christians also increased, particularly after the world wars. Now, sub-Saharan Africa, parts of Latin America, parts of Asia are the big theaters in which Christian activities are taking place. And you and I, we are here are only residual images, if we can say so. But we need to encourage our own hosts, our own people here to enjoy the beauty of the strength that emerges through the seemingly weak cross of Jesus Christ. That's Oz, strength. And help is assistant. Help is an assistant. You know, in the Genesis story, we have a word. God created the woman to be the helper. So who is the weaker person here? The man is the weak person, isn't it?
Thanks, Prof.
It's really so. That's the same idea that is there.
Thanks, love.
So when all the women go home and then you tell your wives, I am your helper. Not subservient person. The Bible does not mean so.
Amen.
It doesn't mean so. Helper is needed as somebody to pull a person up. It is true, men often fall. They are emotionally weak. And perhaps in health too. But it's the women, their cooking, their embrace, their word of encouragement, their scolding, all things help. I think you all can identify with that, isn't it? So, now read that song in its context. The Lord is my refuge, my strength, and my help at all times. It's an amazing. In the second and fifth verse in the psalm are nearly the same. Therefore I will not fear, it tells. I will not fear. Again, the fear that we talk about is not the slavish fear. I will not entertain anything to destabilize my thoughts, destabilize my being, destabilize my relationships. That's what it means. Fear is something that we need to be mindful of. You know, whenever we are afraid of something, we hurt ourselves. And medical people, of whom you are many here, you know it shoots your blood pressure up. And it creates steroids in the body, and the body bulges after some time. So fear, insecurity, stress are the causes of so many diseases, medical people say. But in the Bible and Christians, we always say, do not fear. And then I am told there are 365 instances where the Bible speaks about do not fear. But we do fear because we choose to fear. But friends, let us remember on these particular words, Lord, help me not to fear. And then the following verses, in the in-between verses, are talking about chaotic situation. The mountains can go and fall into the seas. Life can become turmoil. Instantly, unwantedly, unexpectedly, things can happen. Because life is not in our hand. Life is in God's hand. God has endowed it to us to make it useful. It is in God's hand. So we need to be good stewards of life that God has entrusted to us. That's what it means. And verse 5, God is in the city and the God will help us. Now I come to the second name of God in this psalm, Elohim, and here is Yahweh. Nobody knows how to pronounce that word, that name, Yahweh. We say Yahweh because we are accustomed to. When our Jewish friends read it, they do not dare to read it out. They say Adonai, simply means Lord. That is why we have it in the Bible translations, Lord. All the time written capital R. This is the story that takes us back to Moses. Moses asks God, God, what is your name? See, in the midst of so many gods in Egypt, or where he was at that time, in Midian, what is your name? And God reveals that name at that time, Yahweh. So, what does this word indicate? It is the name that reveals God's aspects, God's attributes in a new way in every situation. When he was asked, what is the meaning of the word? I am who I am. Maybe those of you who are very, very good at English may understand the meaning of it. I am who I am. But people like me, for whom English is not as first language, I do not get it. I am who I am. Maybe it is constancy, continuity, strength, it may be there. But what do I understand is the context in which this name appears again and again. So God tells to Moses at that time, Moses, you asked my name. Now better when you are obeying me, step by step, you will discover me afresh. Not beforehand. See, God's revelations come to the degree that we choose to obey. Otherwise, a lot of things will remain only as ideas, as information, as something that we can keep in our mind. But God's revelation comes to the degree that we choose to obey. And this particular word, Yahweh, simply means, you will discover me afresh. In every situation, not only when life is good, and life may get a bit troublesome. As I said earlier, friends, we are fragile people. We may look outwardly very, very strong, but we know how fragile we are. Fathers know about the children, and the children know about their parents. The husband knows about the wife knows about the husband. And pastors to sometimes they know about the congregation and vice versa. We are all delicate, very delicate. It takes a lot of time to build up, but a very small strike to destroy. That is the situation. We need to remember God is not only Elohim who can create something out of chaotic situations, but God is Yahweh. God's new aspects, we will be able to discover it. Friends, only we need to have heart and mind and a seeing eye, a feeling embrace to understand. So may the God as Elohim be there. And we also remember the God of Jacob, which I already said. Yes. The next verse, that is verse 10. Be still and know that I am Elohim. How can you be still when you're agitated? A smaller agitation leads to bigger agitation, and bigger and bigger. It has ripple effect until, when you throw a stone into a pond, ripples happen, but where does it end? Until it disappears. And it hits against the bank, whether it is a small bank or like tsunami, a big bank. It might not be a good thing at all. So be still, it simply means take time, relax. Life will continue. It's not the end of the story. We have a nice proverb. Nobody eats hot as it is cooked. You always wait till the potatoes become cooler so that you can put it into the mouth. You say, it is my food. I cooked it. My mom cooked it. And then put the hot thing into the mouth. And you burn your mouth. It all simply means take some time. Don't rush. Be still. Because when we quieten our heart, we may be able to discover things, see some positive points, otherwise we might not. Oftentimes in shadows, we know the beauty of the sunshine. Not necessarily when the person is with us, when the person is gone, we know. And that is why the Remembrance Day, it helps people to become sober, to be calm, to be relaxed. And the word know, again in English, it is really, really weak. It simply tells mind and acquiring information. In the Hebrew, it is not so. Yada, it means it also has to do with the hand. You touch, you feel, you become intimate. When Abraham knew Sarah, she begot Isaac. That's what it means. Knowing is always relationships, not merely intellectual exercise. So if we treat Christian faith as an intellectual exercise, then we are none better than a great scholar who knows so much, but is afraid to practice. It's very difficult. A person who claims to know everything, but in his life you see, this person doesn't practice. People may not go to that person. But knowledge in the Bible, in the Hebrew Bible, it means intimate relationship. Not based on some kind of uninformed relationships. No, it's informed. Why it is informed? I live with the person. I interact with the person. And wherever people are intimate, conflicts are bound to occur. We cannot escape. It's reality. But what we can escape, don't make that conflict into a life of hell. That is in our hand. I once said in our congregation, we do not prevent the birds to fly over us. They will fly. But we can hinder them building a nest on our head. That is our choice. Isn't it? It's our choice not to do so. Knowledge. And finally, I am exalted among the nations with the concluding part. In the title, I put the word art of remembering. Maintaining fellowship is the best way. There is no other way. Nowadays, lot of people say, I have so many hundreds of people following me in my Facebook. Good for them. But you cannot shake hands with that person. Isn't it? But I think maybe a wise use of mobile phones is urgent need. Everybody is bending their head and typing into it as if the whole world is happening in the phone. They forget the people they sit near them. How do we remember? In the age of super abundant information, people remain ignorant of fellow human beings. I think, friends, our church is the place to reverse that trend. We know each other very well. We are friends and colleagues, members of the same family. Write down. I don't know how many of you keep your diaries. Just a little bit. It will help. It will help. Our ancestors wrote diaries. They wrote down how God fulfilled their expectations, requests, prayers. That's why we say, count your blessing. How do we count if it is not there? There will be more than the sands on the seashore. Yes. Count your blessing, name them one by one. Until we do not write down, we may not be able to count. Sharing with others. I have found it very true. The more we share our knowledge with somebody else, the more it grows. This is the only treasure that does not decrease by giving. Bank balance will go out if you share it. But it is strange. The more we share, the richer we become. The wealthier we become, the more satisfied we become. It is something paradox, but it is very true. Recalling God's acts in times of uncertainties, all of us undergo. Currently, our country is standing in front of one of the biggest uncertainties, Brexit. What will happen to lives, to food supply, to security, information, travel, safety? So many things are happening. Let us remember recalling God's act. Maintaining functioning relationships is one thing. And lastly, I would say we have God as Elohim and God as Yahweh. Let us not forget. Elohim, friends, God who creates something out of nothing. Something meaningful, something worthwhile at that time. It can happen. Elohim. Yahweh is the wonderful catchword to discover God afresh. When things are well with us and when things are not so well with us. Only you know your life. Somebody said, we all carry a mask around us. You can pierce through the mask and you can allow God to pierce through the mask. And perhaps you can allow somebody whom you totally trust to pierce through the mark. Together is the strength. Together is the joy. Together we can discover Elohim and Yahweh. So on this Remembrance Day, may we think about those who lost their lives for freedom and safety. We remember persecuted Christians, and we also remember our own families, our own communities, our own relatives and friends who are near and far. May the God Elohim, may God Yahweh fill us with a new knowledge and new relationships of God Himself.